So to me, that was already like, I didn't expect that. That was my biggest, whoa, like what just happened?
Well, a warm welcome to you all. I'm JJ. I am a life coach and I eat mostly meat.
I'm Eric. I'm a novelist and I eat mostly meat. Today we have a guest.
We do. We're delighted to have Tita Arroyo joining us.
And we met her in Chicago at the meetup.
We did.
Thank you again for having me on. So excited to meet you in Chicago. That was such an awesome event for healing humanity. And just so great to get to meet you guys and to now be able to chat with you guys tonight.
Well, and I am, I was super excited to meet you because I'm a life coach and you're a health coach. So I'm excited to dig into that a little bit later, but we want to start out with, do you do carnivore or are you more keto? What do you do?
I feel like I'm a little bit of all of it. I've had a few periods where I initially said I'm going all in carnivore. So when I first started, this was almost a year ago, February 2nd will be my 1-year carniversary, if we want to call it that. Yeah, I'm super excited. I never thought I would say those words because I thought, heck, I'll try it for 30 days. But I started more carnivore. I said, okay, I'm just going to go in and eat meat for 30 days. But I think I was really worried because I watched a lot of videos and listened to a lot of the doctors and what they said. So I did probably my second probably week or so, I started eating more cheese. So that's considered more keto, right? But for the most part, I think I did it mostly because I was so like worried that I wasn't going to be eating enough and what was I going to have for a snack. I quickly took those out for a while, and for probably several months, I just ate steaks, mostly ribeyes, which are delicious, which I would never, ever imagine myself just having, like this is all I'm having. I wasn't having eggs. I wasn't having really anything else. I was having lunch and dinner, and it was just, my meat with my salt and butter. I still do eat butter or ghee. So those are mainly it. I still do drink coffee, which is totally not carnivore. So definitely call me Team Keto / carnivore.
Well, I drink coffee and I'm not giving it up.
Nope.
I understand. I totally understand.
So what made you decide to try carnivore keto at all in the first place?
Great question. So for me, I luckily don't have a ton of health issues, but I still had a couple of things that were really nagging me. And that for me, I had digestive issues, which I know maybe some people don't want to hear it, right? Or they feel uncomfortable talking about it. But for me, it was detoxing issues. So I couldn't go, right? I had chronic constipation for decades. And if anyone has suffered with that, it is not comfortable. I mean, no digestive issues are comfortable. But for me, that just made me feel so toxic all the time because I felt like I eat a lot. So I felt like I'm eating all these vegetables and, some lean meats and things like that. I was being so healthy. I was doing all the things we're taught to do. We're taught to teach our clients. So for me, the fact that I still wasn't going really regularly always bothered me. And it was almost like that constant nagging of, oh my gosh, did I go? It's almost like you're stressed about it. And I don't know if anybody else has those issues, but we shouldn't live that way. It's so silly that we waste all this time on, oh my gosh, did I go a week ago? Like, you don't remember, because when you suffer with this, you're going about your daily life and you're not going to sit there and maybe you will journal, but I wasn't doing that. So I just lost track. And of course, over the time, with different modifications in diet, I was able to see some improvements, but overall, this has still been a thorn on my side, right? Like, I'm like, what is wrong? And that's been most of my life. And then starting in 2018, I started getting eczema on my arms and didn't know what it was. At first, it's like, what is this? Am I working out too much? Like, because I was getting it in here, like in the elbow crease. And for anybody that's, had that, I had it in a sense very mildly, meaning I didn't have it all over my body. A lot of people have it all over their body where, they can't even like have water on it. It hurts so bad, right? Like I've seen the stories, I've seen the videos. So mine wasn't that bad, but it still was so frustrating, not knowing what was causing it. It would flare up and down. Obviously, I could tell like if I was getting stressed, or like if the temperature goes up, then my internal temperature goes up. That would mean I'm scratching, right? Because it's warm. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I'm itchy, but it would just flare up and down all the time. And that's just so frustrating. So those were the real main reasons why I started. Because other than that, I feel like I'm pretty healthy. But how is it that, doing different allergy testings, like I've done like IgG, IgE, you get your results, you're supposed to eliminate everything that you're seemingly reactive to, which I did back in 2018. And I've done several elimination diets since. The first one I did, I didn't know what I was doing in a sense, even though my practitioner did tell me what to do. And I probably just was trying to reintroduce too quickly. We eliminate stuff and we're like, I can't wait to have that again. So I eliminated, and then I started reintroducing, and I probably just did it wrong, because when I did it again, I learned that you're supposed to do it by, you get your numbers, and you're supposed to start reintroducing by the lowest number that you're reactive to, right? So that you can see, okay, so in introducing this, how are you feeling? Do you notice anything? And you don't introduce everything or several things all at once. So long story short, trial and error, so I seemingly felt okay. And then it was like, okay, well, that still helped. It gave me data points, right? And that's what I encourage everyone to do. Like, hey, get your data points and find out what you're being reactive to. What are your triggers? What's going to flare you up or down? So I'm not saying it wasn't helpful, but 6 years of that, really, so
Yeah.
and having some data points, but not complete data points. So for me, it was just so frustrating. Like, I couldn't believe last year that I was like, it's going to be 6 years. I was really dreading it. It's like I was dreading that 6-year mark of like, how has it been 6 years? I've done autoimmune protocol. I've done several elimination diets. I've done all the systems-based testing. I've done the supplementation for it. I'm like, how am I not well yet? Because to me, having eczema, it's not like I had it as a baby. So having developed this somehow, to me, it's like, it's not normal. So obviously, if I developed it, there has to be a way for me to make it better. And especially when I saw times when I was better. So for me, that, again, those were the two, but it's like, how do I get rid of this? And I actually woke up on Saturday morning last year, February 2nd, I guess it was. And one of my girlfriends had sent me a bunch of videos. We're both into health stuff. So she had sent me a bunch of videos. So when I wake up and, we look at our phone. So when I looked at it, I was like, oh, she sent me all these videos. She's on fire. And she said, watch the one about the 30 days first. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And it was Kerry, from Healing Humanity. And he's talking about his 30-day journey on carnivore and all the things that he was able to improve in 30 days, and less than 30 days, but in 30 days. And I was just blown away. I was like, wait, he was able to heal all those things in 30 days. And obviously, by then he was probably like 387 days in, but I couldn't believe it. So I literally called her and I said, I'm in, I'm doing it. She's like, wait, what? And I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm starting today. Today is day 1. So I grabbed 2 ribeyes out of my freezer, and I made one in the air fryer, and I made one in the Instapot. And that's what I had that day. And I didn't fall apart. So I kept going.
I love that you just jumped in, because we do get questions sometimes about how do I start?
Yeah.
So I love that. And you had already been in the health profession then at this
Yeah.
point?
So yeah, I 4 years, I guess about 4 years in.
Wow. So how was it for you? Did you have any like cognitive dissonance about, wow, I'm not going to have any fiber. Here I have these digestive issues that supposedly require fiber. And even though you'd been on this journey where it wasn't really working, I mean, what was going on in your mind?
Oh, that was probably the hardest, is that I jumped in because I was just so fed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though my issues are small, when you're fed up, you're fed up. You don't care. whatever, you're willing to try anything.
Mm.
So for me, even though obviously my issues aren't that huge, it's still huge for me. And I saw it as, well, I'm either going to die or I'm going to heal, which isn't true. I'm not going to die. But that's kind of how I looked at it. I was like, it's either going to work or it's not. You're going to give it 30 days. And if in 30 days, nothing has changed, you haven't moved the needle at all, then you don't have to keep going. But let's see what happens between now and 30 days. Because again, as a coach, like, you try so many different things, you coach people through different things. So I'm totally open to just, all right, I'll try it. Obviously, if it's not something completely crazy, although carnivore does sound completely crazy. And to answer your question about the fiber, sorry, JJ, to answer your question about the fiber, 100% agree, because that's one of the things that, all of these years it's been, well, you need to increase your fiber, and, the amount of all the different powders and pills, and, you're sticking all the different vegetables and fibrous ones, and, you're doing all the things in the baking and in all the things, right? You're trying to get as much fiber as you can because that's what you're supposed to do. So yeah, I was like, okay, I am armed with some kind of meat, and I am ready for the digestive issues that are going to come, because I'm sure I'm just going to get completely clogged up. And for me, up until that point, I knew that whenever I was fed up and I was clogged up, I was like, all right, well, I know for me, magnesium helps. So I would take what I call magnesium bombs. And I would basically take a little bit of water and put my magnesium powder that I use in there. And then I would just drink that, like, quickly. And I knew that within a small amount of time, it would help me go. So I was like, all right, well, I guess if I'm going to do this for 30 days, I'm going to just have to make sure whenever I need it, I'm going to need to do a magnesium bomb. And I might just need to rely on that a little bit more in the next 30 days. Well, in 4 days, I went without any effort, without any issues. And it's been perfectly fine since. I have not taken any more magnesium since then. So to me, that was already like, I didn't expect that. That was my biggest, whoa, like, what just happened? And I really didn't expect it, because in my mind, I went through all that process to say, well, how are you going to counter that you have no fiber? Well, I guess, I'll do the supplementation when I need it. And so for me, that was huge to know that how, I don't understand. I've lived all my life with this problem. And if you're going to tell me that in 4 days, I can fix this. And of course I didn't look back. I saw it as like, well, I don't know if it's going to be this way, but again, you keep educating yourself. So I Googled it, and I'm like, well, is everybody else experiencing this? So not that everyone has the same problem, but if you do Google it, what comes back from the community is that, well, you don't go as much, and that's normal because you're actually taking in all the nutrients. Your body is actually absorbing all it needs. And then instead of expelling all that extra stuff, you're just not expelling as much. So it made sense. But when you first look at it at face value and you say, I'm going to go do this, it sounds completely insane, but I'm going to do it. You don't really think through it, right? Like, you don't say, oh, well, if you're only eating this, what is your body going to do? But that's okay. That's why things like this are so powerful, because we can all help educate each other. And I just love what everyone is doing, because I would have never in a million years, if you had told me, well, Tita, you're going to eat more of a carnivore way of eating, more keto, and, you're not going to have vegetables and fruit, I would be like, no. I mean, I've always liked my meat, don't get me wrong, but I would have never guessed in a million years. And especially with all the training as a health coach, like, that's just not what we're taught, right? Like, we're not taught that it's bad. We're taught that it's part of a balanced diet, but you're supposed to have all of the macronutrients. So I'm like, all I can do is try. And for me, what's most important is healing. And obviously, if I kind of felt like, if I can't even heal myself, like, I know I can help heal others, because it is about the lifestyle factors and everyone's journey is different. But, after how many years, I'm like, how am I not able to fix this? So I'm glad that I took the chance on Carnivore and on myself. So in a sense, that's part of why I just jumped in, because I was like, what do I have to lose? What if this helps? If this helps, why would I keep this from myself and then from anybody else who I encounter in the future? Like, we owe it to the rest of the people out there. And like, I personally feel like I would owe it to my clients and my future clients to try it out. Like, I never ask my clients to do anything I haven't done before. Like, if I tell them like, well, try this, like, I've done it. I walk through it before they do. So I know what to expect and I know what they might experience, because that's not fair, right? I'm not going to tell them go do this and, I haven't done it myself.
So you're a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, which means you've done a lot of work on nutrition.
Yes.
I'm guessing none of it said go carnivore.
No, absolutely not. And what's interesting, again, for anyone out there who obviously is a health coach or is thinking about becoming a health coach, and what type of coach, there's so many coaches out there, right? It's really, coaching and health coaching is really about how to coach, right? And so of course the nutrition side of it, the health coaching side of it, all of those things are still going to be taught. You're going to learn about all different types of diets, right? About how they impact the body, about which clients might do better on which. So you learn about all these different factors. But no, carnivore is not on the list of, like, if you want healing for all of these lists, the long list that we can all probably attribute to, you're not going to see it. But then again, I think it's a matter of what research is being done, what's actually being published, what's being censored. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. But the more and more people search for it, because think about it, when we look at things and we're like, oh, that sounds crazy, right? But you're still curious. So you're going to go look for whatever the crazy thing is, right? Meaning if you hear something from someone or whatever, you're like, oh, that sounds crazy, but that's interesting. Let me look it up, right? So you look it up on your phone or you look it up on your computer and you go down the rabbit hole, and maybe whoever you are, you're like, oh no, that's not true. I'm not doing that, right? But if you're curious, you're going to go research. And the more you research, the more you find information. And there's so many credible sources out there, like all these doctors, they're not out there trying to discredit themselves. They've worked so hard to get their licenses and to be able to practice medicine. There's no way they would be trying to spread something that isn't true. So for me, when I saw all of that, I was like, oh my goodness, even though that's not what we're taught about all the balance and how important, carbs and fiber and all those things are. And the truth is, maybe for some people, they're just built a little differently, right? So they're able to manage those loads, the toxic loads, and they're able to detox those loads. So as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, I know it's such a long name, we're taught systems based. So we're able to, with certain questionnaires, with symptoms, we can kind of see, okay, which systems are falling out of balance just from the symptomatology. And then if people want to do testing, we can always say, okay, well, perhaps if we do these types of tests, we can see how far out of balance you've become. And then we can provide supplementation for it. And then obviously, because I'm already a health coach, then I already know like how to help make sure, how do we make these goals? How do we make them attainable? How do we make them so that, you're having all those small wins, and, if they need to tweak, that's always okay too. But that's kind of where the functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner falls in, because I know a lot of people are probably like, what is that?
Well, can you tell me what the functional piece means? And is that the systems piece? Because I know we're hearing more and more about functional doctors and functional coaches.
So it's a little bit of both. So the functional diagnostic is because we are doing diagnostic testing, right? To like see the different systems, and functional because, like functional medicine, we're trying to get at the root cause medicine and see where are we falling out of balance so that we can help our bodies become balanced again. Because really our bodies are really smart, very smart, from each cellular level to, all the tissues, all the cells, everything works together and it's all really smart. It knows what to do to repair. But when we fall so out of balance, then it's just trying to fight something that's just really hard to get back the other way. So it's just really neat to be able to see, okay, well, now I understand why maybe all of these things aren't working. This might be why you're not sleeping well, or this might be why you're having so many digestive issues. And we can just tweak certain things. I always say sleep is like the paramount. It's the number one thing because it helps regulate hormones. That way you're sleeping better, eating a little more balanced usually because you're not going crazy hungry all the time. But yeah, like it's just really cool to see how you can bring people back into balance, because that's most of what's happening is that we start getting symptoms and we start getting dis-ease because we're completely out of balance.
Now, you're talking about balance, and I always had the sense when it came to health and diet that because and like you said, you existed before the psoriasis diagnosis. You didn't have it, or eczema?
Yep.
They're
Eczema?
so similar. It's okay.
You were fine before that, and then you weren't. So I've always had the sense that the long-term health plan should be pretty easy and pretty natural. You might need some special diet elimination, supplementation early on, but then it should be pretty easy and sustainable. So for me, Carnivore answered that piece.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little, what are your views on that?
I totally agree. I mean, I think what most people don't also see is that, like, it sounds so crazy. It's such a weird elimination diet, right? And I say that because we really should refer to it as an elimination diet, right? Like you're just eliminating everything else and you're just focusing on these healing foods. But we should be natural, but unfortunately that's not how we all grew up. And that's not how society is, right? We're so fast paced. Everything's just like go, go, go. And we probably even sometimes fall into that, right? Like we're like, oh, we're going to be on the go. Well, we'll figure it out, right?
Mhm.
We probably all grew up in an era where it was like, okay, well, everything's turning, from eating, for me at least, it was from eating more whole foods to all of a sudden everything's prepackaged, everything's fat free, and it was like, oh, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to have. You're not supposed to have fat. Fat's bad for you, So it's like everything shifted. And instead of being more natural and like a few things you ate, it was like now you have all these options because the food companies were just, churning out all the stuff. And it's like, oh, well, we'll have it. Of course, it's fat free. It's great. It's fat free, it's sugar free. It's all the frees, right? So you're like, oh, well, that obviously is not affecting my health if it's fat free and sugar free and all those things. So we're just going to intake. And we all know they're all full of addictive things. But did we know it back then? No. So it's all of these years of us not knowing and putting all of these things in our body, on our bodies, because of course it doesn't stop at, just what we ingest. It's also what we put on our body. So I think for me, what I always tell people is it took us how many years to get to wherever we are, right? Like whatever your dis-ease, like however your body's out of balance, it took probably several decades to get there. So we can't expect it to just heal magically in 3 seconds. But I think with Carnivore, it's actually a little bit faster. Although I will say after I saw my detox issues go away in 4 days, I thought the eczema, I was like so encouraged. I was like, oh gosh, that means I'm probably going to get better really soon, So I really had hope. But of course, I did stop myself and I said, okay, you can't get ahead of yourself because then you're going to get frustrated if you don't heal fast enough for what you think. And the truth is, there is no guidebook to tell you, oh, well, if you have this, you will heal in this many days, right? So again, I try to be as patient as possible with myself. But for anyone out there who is going to do Carnivore and has had a lot of vegetables, maybe go slow, because I think that's what I might have done wrong since I went all in, and I just cut out all the plants. For me, looking back, and of course, I did a lot of the research again. I think I was doing a lot of oxalate dumping. So it got worse before it got better. So I started in February, and by June, I had eczema on the backs of my knees, which is so uncomfortable. And I feel so bad for anyone out there who has had it their whole life, because I only had 6 years of here and here. And I can't imagine what it would have been. And actually, it wasn't 6 years, it was less than 6 years. Thank you, Lord. But that would have been horrible to deal with that for that long. So I didn't understand what was happening. I researched it, and that's what I think it was. It was very frustrating, and it wasn't until September that it finally cleared. Like, it started kind of clearing up in August, but I finally saw, I was like, oh, I think I'm in the clear. So the knees cleared first, and then the arms cleared, and then I feel like I'm in the clear. All right, we got this. But yeah, we should be following natural, but it's also, how has the word natural been so diluted, right? Like, I always teach my clients and my friends and my family, right? They're, oh, well, Tita, look at this. They're like, this is all natural and sugar-free and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, turn it around, read the label. What does it say, right? Because they're so good at all the marketing. Oh, it's all of these things. Just like I was saying before, it was fat-free and sugar-free and all the things, because that's what we were moving away from, the natural to the unnatural, which is just going to keep us addicted and wanting more. And then we wonder why we have this obesity epidemic, and why so many people are having so many health issues. But again, it's so deceptive. And the truth is, it is marketing. Like, when you see something saying all natural, I appreciate that you want to take it at face value, but please do yourself a favor and kind of say, wait a second. Nope. Let me turn it around. What's the ingredients? If you don't know what the ingredient is, you can look it up. But, if you're in a hurry, then maybe put it back and see if the next one has a better option of ingredients. If you can read it and you know what everything is, and it makes sense to you that it should have those things, then go ahead and purchase it. And again, if it's something I always say, if you have it in your house and you already have it, you don't have to be extreme and get rid of it. Go through it. If you're not suffering that much, go through it. And when you're done, you're going to make a better purchase. But if you're crazy like me, you're just going to go all in.
Do you have any struggles right now around cravings or anything like that?
I think we're all human. It sometimes happens. But honestly, I find that the cravings come, and it's like, I have to put my own coach hat on and say, well, why are you craving that right now? And half the time it's like, all right, go through the systems. I'm like, well, are you thirsty? Well, yeah, let's drink a little more water. That's true. I haven't drank that much. Or else it's like, well, are you bored? Because boredom can mask as hunger. How much did I sleep last night? Am I just a little unbalanced? And yeah, sometimes I might want something, but honestly, it's so much less. And kind of when I talk myself through that, at least for myself, it works. Because if you're really hungry, you're going to want like real food. And I know what the roller coaster of, oh, I want something sweet. So then you're like, ooh, what could I have? Right. But then you go get something sweet. And what happens 5 minutes later? You're like, ooh, I want something salty. I mean, at least that was my story. I don't know if that's everybody else's story of their cravings, but that's what would happen to me. Like, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, maybe in the past, right? I'd be like, oh, well, maybe I'll have this piece of chocolate. Okay, great. So you're like, oh, that felt great. I feel great. And then what? Like, it felt like not even 5 minutes later. Maybe it was like 30 minutes later or whatever. But you feel the nagging again. And it's like, why? Okay, well, now I feel like something salty. So, or you want more of something else. But it's like, why is my body asking me for this? Because the truth is, when I eat either a steak, or like today I had some leftover pot roast, I mean, when I'm hungry, I go warm it up, or I go make a steak, I eat it, I am like super happy because it's yummy
Mhm.
and it's keeping me like just nice and balanced. And when I'm done, I'm done. Like I didn't even finish my leftovers today. I thought I would. And I was like, oh, I think I'm good. So eat until you feel full. Don't eat until you're sick, right? And then drink enough water. But yeah, for me, when the cravings come, I really do just stop myself and I'm like, but why?
Mm.
And it doesn't mean that sometimes I don't allow things, but
One of the
sorry.
things I noticed once we got deeper into carnivore, and then we would go like a few days, we'd have chicken or pork or something like that just for variety. And then all of a sudden we would have that serving of steak again. And the body responds totally differently to red meat than it does to chicken and pork. I don't know why, but there's like this deep satisfaction that the actual nutrition that was needed just went in.
Mhm.
No,
And
I totally got that.
and the all the satiety signals, it takes a while for them to reset and for the mind body to understand when it's full and when it's fake hungry, like you were talking about.
Mhm.
But what I've found is if I keep any artificial sweetener in the diet, it
Mm,
keeps my sweet cravings alive. And after the holidays, when we planned to have some off-plan meals, which we did,
Mhm.
and but then as soon as that's over, it's like back on plan. And I remember I had had my breakfast, and a little bit later, I was sitting down to work on my computer, and my brain started to make my body move to the cupboard where the Kind bars were. These are my daughter's Kind bars, and I did not plan to eat the Kind bar. I was going to put a layer of peanut butter on the top of it to
ooh.
make it even better.
Mhm.
And I caught myself going through the rationalization of how it was okay to do it today because dinner I would have a carnivore compliant one, and then the next morning I'd be fine. I'd just be right back on the plan. And
Right?
I stopped like my arm like a robot that just froze, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not doing that.
That's
But
awesome
for
though.
decades of my life, I would have already eaten one or two or three of those before I even realized what had happened.
That's true. When you're in motion, you're in motion.
Yeah, it would just have been automatic.
It's
But
so
with
true.
carnivore, it's so much easier to not fall into that trap for me.
I agree. I agree. And again, for the people that are out there that maybe can't, they're not there yet, that's okay. But I love that you knew that about yourself. So it is again, how do you know what your triggers are? Do you know what's causing them? And then how do you talk yourself through it? Right? Whether you are going to allow something, how are you going to get back? And if you're not going to allow it, what are you going to do in place of it? Right? Because again, a lot of times we're just so used to it. Like you said, you were almost like a robotic. Like you're
Yeah.
like it was automatic. You were already thinking through like, what's my plan? It's okay because I'll get back in line, so to speak. But at the same time, well, wait, hold on, back it up. We don't even need to go there, right? Because again, for so many people out there, they're struggling with the food addictions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what it is, right? Like you're like,
Yeah.
ooh, because you opened Pandora's box and you had some goodies over the holiday. And that's fine. I think everyone can do that. But let me put a star next to everyone because if you really don't know how to moderate, you really are at risk of just throwing away everything you just did. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, it's not completely a waste, obviously. Like, that's one meal, right? So even if you cheated for however long it was, all right, well, that was it. All right, close the door, give yourself grace. What are you going to do next? It's always your next decision can be a great decision.
I
So,
liked at the Chicago meetup, Dr. Wiedemann talked about this very issue because she can't moderate.
Yeah.
mhm,
And so I think she said every day is day one,
Mhm.
something to that effect.
right.
And it's kind of how she approaches it.
And I think that's really powerful
Yeah.
because, again, so many people fall into that whole trap of, oh, well, see, I screwed up again. So then, oh, it's all lost and, oh, I just can't do it. Right. And it's just this negative loop, which is not true. You just have to like stop it, cancel it, And even if it has to be every day is a day one, that's probably a healthy way to look at it, because otherwise, if you're left keeping the score, sometimes you're going to disappoint yourself. And it's just smart to kind of give yourself that clean slate and just look at it as like, okay, it's one meal at a time, right? It's always just one day at a time, one meal at a time. Just get through that meal, get through that, win. Because when you keep winning, you're going to see how great your body feels and how great you feel. So I loved that she shared about that, because again, so many people, we're all dealing with different things. So yeah, that was such a love, all the topics that get covered at the meetups.
So do you feel like you've gotten other benefits from carnivore? More energy, more better cognitive function, or anything like that other people report?
I feel like for me, it definitely keeps me really focused. I think sometimes I still probably have a little bit of brain fog, probably just doing too many things. But in general, I just feel so focused and overall really free, especially because I'm not, like you just mentioned about the cravings, right? Think about all that brain power that it took, like the brain power, and you're like, oh, the plan, and then all of a sudden you're like, nope, not doing that, right? I mean, I don't worry about any of those things anymore. Like I barely even have to worry about meal planning, right? Like
Yeah.
you buy a few things, they're easy to make, and you're just freed from all of that like nonsense of like, oh, well, I have to make all these things. I actually enjoy cooking, so I wouldn't have minded, but I have a really busy schedule. So this is actually awesome. So I'm like, this is super easy. I love it. So for me, I feel like because I'm not having all the different cravings all the time, because I'm pretty imbalanced, I love that because it helps me to focus. In my opinion, it helps me to focus even more, because again, when the nagging might come, it's more like I'm either thirsty or hungry. So I'm just free to just keep moving and keep chugging along, which I love, because there's so much to be done out there, so many people to heal. And I'm like, well, I don't need to waste time on all these other things. So for me, really, all I was looking to do is see if it would move the needle for the constipation and mostly the eczema. Because I personally thought, I'm like, I'm just going to have to deal with this constipation thing all my life and just supplement it, where needed. And I'm like, well, that's all I've known. So if that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do. I honestly did not expect it to get rid of that as quickly as it did. So for me, that was really honestly life-changing. And then what I was really hoping it would do is clear the eczema. And obviously after 30 days, I was in such shock that I was feeling really good. I mean, like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I never feel like bloated anymore, or like, like when you used to eat and you'd eat and all of a sudden, like, you're trying to do some work and you're just like falling asleep and you're like, oh, I had too many carbs, like you can sometimes notice what it is, but then what does that do? Then you're like, oh, well, I probably need some coffee, or like for the people that drink soda, like again, you're just doing this loop of just,
Yeah.
fortunately,
I
bad
have a
choices.
theory that very few people actually know what the internal sensation of the gut should feel like.
Yeah.
Because they've never felt it since probably they were 5.
Yeah.
Because once you feel how just normal and non-bloated, and for me, I had a lot of IBS pain issues that I was dealing with, and to have that go away and have the reflux go away, the life-changing quality of that is hard to overstate.
Yes.
But yeah, just knowing how the normal organism should feel on proper food
Yes.
is just crazy.
And it's so funny because even when we will, go out somewhere and eat a salad with our meat, like just a salad, the gut has more bloat
Mhm.
and a whole different sensation just from introducing a small dinner salad.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
It's
Well, you're making
amazing.
it do more work too. So
Yeah.
it's like you're stressing the body, and it's doing more work. So, and obviously it's doing its processes, so it's going to have some outgassing, so to speak.
So, have you done any experiments with time restricted eating or fasting?
Yeah, it's actually part of what I teach my clients to do is that, obviously, if they're open to it. And it's really so beneficial because, again, thank you for asking that. It's such an opportune time because when you feed your body, with what I usually teach people is to get to the point where they're just eating in an 8-hour window. So we're just restricting or like narrowing that window a little bit. And if you think about it, like hopefully you sleep about 8 hours. So for those 8 hours, you're not eating. And so really a few more hours, that's already putting you at 12. And I'm not saying everyone has to do this, right? But break your fast when you need to break it, right? But yeah, if you can just kind of narrow that window into about 8 hours. What's awesome about it, and if you try not to snack in between, of course, what's awesome is your body is going to take in all the stuff, all the nutrients. It's going to do its work. It's going to do the digestion, and then it's going to rest, which is what you want most of the time. Because even though people don't realize this, when your body's working, that's putting stress on the body, right? I mean, it's needed stress, but it's still stress on the body. So, and we already as a society live in a really kind of in a stressful way. So, and the body doesn't understand the two. So as far as like narrowing your feeding window, it's really important because then you have your meals and then you let the body rest. And it's nice that, especially like when you go to sleep, if you've eaten at least 3 hours before your bedtime, then that digestion process has already started. So when you go to sleep, you're really having all that physical repair first and then the psychological repair, right? So you're forming better memories. So by the time you wake up, you didn't wake up in the middle of the night because you have indigestion and you don't know why. So because the body's already done a lot of the work, you're able to have better rest because you are allowing your body to do the work that it needed to do and then to have that period of rest. So I think it's great. And obviously we know all the great benefits of fasting in the sense that you're allowing the body to basically detox and do the autophagy, which is when you're getting rid of all the cells that, need to be purged, right? So you can make way for new and clean and, life-giving.
I came to fasting before carnivore, actually. So, yeah. And for me, it moved me into carnivore very naturally. It was a good natural progression for me. So I am a big proponent of that. Although Eric is not as much.
Not as much, but I did find that we moved our eating window earlier in the day. So I'm done long before bed. And that improved my sleep dramatically.
Yeah.
Nothing was improving it. And that
He's tried
one change
everything.
made the biggest difference.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that because again, I've had several clients who obviously have seen the difference. And I obviously saw it in myself, because I didn't always fast a little bit earlier, like having that last meal by like between like at latest 7 is like game changer for most people because, oftentimes because of our crazy schedules, we come home and we're maybe, who knows if we had snacks in between or if we had an event, then we had stuff there and then you end up coming home and that's when you're focusing on your main last meal. And somehow you always tend to say, well, it has to be a meal, right? So it's got to be like this heavy thing. And it's like, oh, you're making it do so much work, but okay. So if you can do it earlier, help your body help you.
So your last name is Arroyo.
Yes.
And we talked a little bit about this at the meetup, and I wanted to bring it up that culturally, your family eats some grains and carbs and things. Can you talk a little bit about that for you?
Yes, I would love to. So what's funny is, yes, I thought I was never going to get off rice for sure because that's how I grew up. I grew up eating like every day we had rice and usually beans of some sort and some kind of, protein and a little salad at least, and usually bread. I mean, like that was the complete meal, complete package, right? And so as the years went by and I started making dietary changes and started feeling better, I was like, well, I think I need to cut out some of the carbs. So I think I'm going to stop making rice every week. And because if you left it up to me, I could have rice every day. And or pasta, but because of my background, I was just used to having rice and beans and whatever the protein, but lots of rice, like
Yeah.
rice and beans and protein, like it was like rice, lots of rice. So I personally feel like I'm a total carbaholic. I've always said that. But the truth is, I was able to wean myself off. I started it as, okay, I am not going to have it Monday through Friday. And what I'm going to do, and this was like years ago, probably like 13 years ago. I was like, okay, what you're going to do is you can allow yourself one full day of like whatever you want,
Mhm.
because I also knew I would just feel like crap. So the more the more you're like, well, you're not going to fully do it because you're going to feel awful. But, because your brain's still kind of like not there, you're like, I'm still going to do it. So I wouldn't have it during the week. And then I would allow myself to have it on the weekends. So maybe I'd make like a small batch of like my rice and maybe the beans or whatever. And whatever I wanted, I would have. Well, it's funny because again, when you get used to making pot roast, and because I told myself, if I'm going to get rid of the rice, then I have to find the things that I really love so that I can eat those. Because if I don't love them, then I'm not going to want to eat them. And I'm just going to feel tortured all week.
Yeah.
So then I started like identifying, okay, well, what do I really like? And, back then I used to love big salads with like walnuts but clean. Like I wasn't like putting the crazy vinaigrettes with, candied walnuts and all that. No, I was really clean about it. But still, for me, I was like, well, this is super enjoyable to me. Or I would make myself like a Cobb salad. So it's got like the eggs and like whatever components I loved. I was like, as long as I love it and it's healthy, I'm still going to have it. So, but I started making the pot roast and things like that. And for me, like, I didn't even realize how much I liked that, but I started making it and I was like, oh, this is delicious. Like this big hunk of meat with broth and, so satisfying. And I almost, those days, it's funny. I guess I never noticed it until you just asked me, but like, I didn't even realize how much I didn't even need vegetables when I would make a pot roast. Like I would make myself like spinach. Like I used to love having spinach, like just like with lemon and garlic, but you take a whole bag of spinach and you like cook it down and it's like nothing. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that's what I'm having, So yeah, I really weaned myself off, just kind of like telling myself that I could have a cheat day, if that makes sense. And at first I think it was probably hard, but it really just became normal and I really didn't miss it as much. Does that mean I never have rice? No, I'll still have some. And like you guys mentioned over the holidays, like, I went to see family and it's not like I was going to be like, oh no, I can't have that. Like I do that enough during the year where I'm just like, no, it's okay. I just pick and choose what I can have, or I bring my own food so that I'm just staying compliant with what I want. And so that way I know how I'm going to feel and I'm going to feel great. So
Yeah.
always trying to make the best decisions. But yeah, never in a million years would I have thought I could kick the whole rice addiction, because
I think it's an important topic. I really do. Yeah.
And whether it's like the rice or the grains, like, I mean, they're all, it's so true, because even if we don't look at it that way, what do you normally eat when you go to the movie theater? Popcorn. What do you eat when you go to a baseball game or like a hockey game or whatever the game is, right? Like you're going to eat hot dogs, you're going to have soda, you're going to have a beer. Like there's certain foods that are just automatically associated with certain events, whether they're family events or they're outings or sporting events, whatever it is. It's just socially accepted and it's the norm. And so that was part of what we also learned in coaching, right? Like for us, that's part of what we learned, because you have to acknowledge that and you have to help people acknowledge that so that then they can know, at least be informed and armed, because that's really all you need. You need to be informed and armed with the information so that then you can make a plan, right? And you'll know, okay, so when I do this.
Yep. Your strategies and your support. How are you going to support yourself? What strategies are you going to use? Yeah.
Because it's so easy to, like you were saying, Eric, like you were ready for those kind bars and that peanut. I love it. And the peanut butter. You know what I mean? Like I get it. We love food, and you know what? You should be able to enjoy your food, but the issue here isn't not enjoying your food, because I think everyone who's on carnivore is definitely, or keto or whatever you're doing, you're enjoying your food, but
Oh yeah.
you're enjoying your health so much more. And I think so many people out there are just thinking that getting older, this is what's happening and it's just a part of life or it's your genes. And I'm not saying that sometimes that isn't part of it. But again, how many decades did it take to get to where you are? Like, it's going to take some time. And I think it's crazy that all this time nutrition hasn't been looked at, like, unfortunately, the doctors say it themselves. They're not really that educated on nutrition unless they've actually sought it out, like Dr. Hampton. Go, Dr. Hampton.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky that I get to see him now. But again, it's because of all of you who've shared about all of the awesome doctors, had interviews, and then the rest of us, again, you're curious. And I'm like, where is this guy? Wait, what? He's in Chicago? I'm totally going to see him. So
Yeah, rub it in, rub it in.
not that far.
It's still nope, not our system.
I know. But again, everyone out there can
Yeah.
research it and figure
Yeah.
out, well, who's the closest, or like, maybe they're not going to find that specific person. But again, the resources are out there, and the healing is definitely out there. But obviously people have to be ready, and they have to do it, at their own pace and what makes sense for them. But I think it's really cool that everyone's like, well, at least try it for 30 days. Like,
Yeah.
you can do anything for 30 days. You know what I mean? And again, if you have that mindset of one day at a time and one meal at a time, it just gets so much easier. Because if you look at it as like you normally look at it, you're like, oh, I have to eat 3 meals plus snacks. And, no, like, your body is capable of so much more. You just have to stop second guessing it. And really, again, when your body tells you it's hungry, is it really? Are you sure? Kind of
Yeah.
check those boxes again and say, well, maybe it is that.
Tita, what type of people do you like to work with in your coaching practice?
Well, of course, I love everyone. Great question.
Yeah.
But I tend to focus on working with women.
Mhm.
Usually they're aged like 35 to 65. That's really the group that I've been working with the most. And really, again, I do work with some men. So like, if there's anyone out there, reach out. But usually they're looking for better sleep, more energy, and weight loss. Like, weight loss is usually across the board. Everyone wants that. But those are the main things that they've been looking for, and that we've really been able to move the needle on. Even just eating, still just whole food based, but obviously cleaning out all the ultra processed foods and making sure they're, just not having the sugar, and, kind of doing basically an elimination diet, but not as strict as keto carnivore might be.
So you'll run the gamut. You're meeting people where they are, it sounds like.
Exactly.
as far as
Oh,
diet
for
goes.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think as the time goes by and I continue on my keto carnivore journey and continue to learn, I would love to also have the offering where we can do more keto carnivore. But 100%, I always meet people where they're at, because again, you never know where someone's going to go. You just have to give them the opportunity to really like recognize where they are, where they want to go, and then figure out what the bridge is to get there.
And do you meet people in person? We were just talking about how we can't see Dr. Hampton. So do you meet people in person, virtually? What does that look like?
I do everything virtually. If someone is here downtown, I can do something in person, but usually it's just much easier to do everything virtually. That way it works for them. They're in a comfortable space. I'm in a comfortable space. And, like kind of like how we're talking today, like it just makes it so much easier to be able to just, again, meet them where they're at. And that way we use our time better rather than them having to come to me or me having to come to them.
I love that.
Agreed. Yeah.
I know how that goes. Yeah. So I've been able to work with people all over the world. It's been amazing.
It's
I
so
love it.
great. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And do you do one-off appointments or consults or packages? What do you do as far as
I
that?
do a little bit of everything. So
Okay.
great question. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
I do have some programs that I do where it's more self-paced. You'll have recorded modules to kind of walk you through I call it back to basics, but it walks you through like sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and exercise and movement. And then that way you can make your goals week by week and kind of keep habit stacking. And then I also do one-on-one coaching. And I also have a program that I run that's 12 weeks. And that's kind of like the one that encompasses everything, right? So that one's got all of the different mindset and stress reduction and going through all the systems and having the blueprint of the nutrition, having more whole foods, and really giving your body those signals of stressing less so that you can actually help your body to heal. So love all of it. And it's all, it all runs together. But yeah, just love it. And it's so much fun seeing people, get their wins, and sometimes they get wins that you didn't even expect. So it's really neat.
Well, it's been amazing talking to you and just hearing about the different, you've shared some of the strategies you use, and you've shared how you've done things really quickly or done things step by step. And so I can see that you have a lot of different knowledge and experience under your belt. So that's awesome.
No, for sure. And I love to share it. So thank you guys so much for letting me come on and just, chat with you today.
So how do these good people get a hold of you if they want to find more information?
Oh, sure. So they can reach me on my website. It's www.lifeloveshc.com. So Life Loves Health Coaching. And if they want to reach me, they can email me. It's mycoach@lifelovesco.com.
Fabulous.
And remember, there's a difference. The website's HC.
Yes.
And the email is CO.
Eventually
Because
they'll be.
I did it wrong the first time I tried to email
You're
you.
good. No worries.
So this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your story. We're so happy that you've had the healing you've had. And every time we talk to someone who's gone through this, we know that not only has their life changed, everybody around them, their lives have improved.
Yes.
And as a model for this way of eating, you're showing people that it works and it's not crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. And it's true. I mean, we just have to, if we can, lead by example. And again, the curious will find us and they'll ask the questions and they'll find their own healing. So thank you guys so much for your time and for being so awesome. I, again, loved meeting you guys at the meetup in Chicago. And it's just, you never know what being curious and just speaking up, what it's going to do for you, right?